We're both.
All right, guys, I'd like to call the meeting to order. The time is now 2:00. All members are present. Oh, that's after the flag. Introduce yours, please.
Join hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All members are present. You invite, you okay over there?
Mhm.
Gotcha.
Oh, good.
Wow.
We should get chipped like that.
The public comment, we're gonna waive the reading, but public comment is invited. We're going to bypass the commissioner. Does anybody have anything for commissioner reports?
No.
No. CSEA, do you have anything for us in your little section on our thing?
Just that there is a potential interested party to fill Olga's seat. I'm still getting details. I don't know, where we're at with that, but there was somebody that my VP was discussing, that with. That's all I've got.
All right, we have nothing from, you need any?
Nothing this evening, sir.
Okay, and we have nothing from the director. I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Motion.
Second.
Anybody have anything outside of that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, with that, Ms. Newell, we are going to interview our candidate. So you can invite him, her, in. Yeah, get them in here. I just threw you water.
I drank half of it.
Okay, would you like these instead? Here.
Commissioners, I'd like to introduce Mr. Daniel Ortiz.
Mr. Ortiz,
Interview the candidate you are interviewing today.
of course, doesn't bother me. Hi, I'm Ben Rosenberg.
Dan Ortiz.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Jason G.
Jason Dan Ortiz.
Oh, your friend.
Nice to meet you.
I met you.
Hi, Christina Crane.
Last.
How are you?
Pleasure to meet you.
Mr. Ortiz, how are you? Nice to see you.
Welcome today, sir. What we're gonna do is, kind of go around the table. We're gonna ask you.
Sure.
10 questions. And we'll go from there. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna ask you to walk out and we're gonna have, our groups and stuff like that. So, with that, I guess we're gonna start. And what we'll do is we'll just go 1, 2, 3, back around until we're done. Fine. All right. Ms. Burton?
Are you ready?
Yes.
A director in a merit system school district is required to prepare and or present written and oral reports for delivery to many levels of the organization, including but not limited to the superintendent, cabinet, board of trustees, personnel commissioners, department administrators, staff, and or the general public. Provide an example where you were tasked to research, assimilate, and present data. Include the steps taken throughout each step of the process.
Great, and I guess I should probably say thank you for meeting with me today. I appreciate you considering my candidacy. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to take an approach here where I'm going to give you an example of my graduate degree. I wrote a thesis, obviously, for my master's in political science at San Diego State. And I researched the very specific area of research of American government on the reason why people select one candidate over another. It's called vote choice. And I drew on exit polling data from the 2004 Iowa caucus. And I crunched all this data using SPSS, which is the statistical package for social sciences. And throughout this process, obviously, there's a lot of stuff that goes in the front end before you have to research the There's a review of the literature. You have to compose a thesis and then follow up with the data to try to either prove or disprove your thesis, right? and I did that. So that would be in that category. I think more specifically on the professional side, I mean, we, I was a labor relations rep for CSEA for many years, right? 12, 13 years or so. And we conducted budget analysis on districts all the time. So, I mean, 401 is what we, used, right? I mean, we had our own Excel sheets that we just plug and played, and a lot of this data would just get crunched. And we also relied on our budget department to provide a report. Sometimes those reports were not so great. And sometimes the supervisory classified were not selected out, and so that would throw the numbers off a little bit. So we found it on a couple of occasions, and so that's why some of the reps would prefer to use their own sheet. So that's, but again, we would ask for this data, under ed code, get the formal ones, and then plug in all this data to our spreadsheets, produce our report, and that's how we prepare for our bargaining.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Ortiz,
Sure.
please describe the depth and breadth of your training and most significant experience as it relates to this position, including but not limited to interpreting and applying the merit system or contract language and working with school boards and or personnel commissions under Brown Act regulations.
Great, so this would also have a dual response on this, right? My part, as I stated, and you probably read in my resume, I was a labor rep for CSEA. I interacted with school boards there all the time. With merit systems, I had 2 merit districts, La Mesa, Spring Valley, and San Diego County Office of Ed. I interacted with the personnel commissioners often, with the personnel director as well, often, either through bargaining or through disciplines, right? There was a lot of ongoing conversations between both sides on how to best resolve problems or issues that arise, either on a job description or on a discipline. So many issues. We also bargained benchmark districts and some of the job reclasses. All these things were sort of part of the bargaining process for us. Let me just read this real quick. The Brown Act part. I should also mention that I myself was an appointed commissioner in San Diego for the City of San Diego Equal Opportunity Commission. I served on that board for about 10 years. Term's only supposed to go 8 years, but there was no replacement for me, and if I would have left, then they would lose quorum, so I kind of just held on there to help the commission, right, so they would need quorum. But we're subject to Brown Act, and we got trained on the Brown Act. I know not to send all. We email people individually and reply individually for that reason. And I mean, I'm familiar with some of the other provisions of Brown Act on basic chain meetings and these other things that we were cautioned against, right, by the city attorney multiple times. And as far as, I guess with school boards, which is something else you ask here, is I attended those meetings. I would meet with board members individually, collectively, right, to as an advocate. I was an advocate for my members. And we had those conversations always under Brown Act, right, without violating.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Describe your experience and responsibility in developing and managing an operating budget and prioritizing services and resources. Include any innovative solutions dealing with budgetary restraints while providing adequate services.
So in my previous position as a as a regional manager for United Domestic Workers, a union in San Diego, statewide. I was a regional manager for San Diego and Imperial County. I had to manage my budget. I had a budget for my office and the office in Imperial County. I prioritized office space and the safety of my staff. I noticed that we had to, our staff had to regularly test for COVID. A lot of the staff was getting sick, and we noticed that our staff was they were testing positive and confirmed with PCR test, even though they didn't have any symptoms. And yet they were infecting others, and we were losing people, right? People had to go 5 days or whatever it was. It was affecting our operation. So I changed the layout of our office, spread everybody out. And I bought, the air filter that I could find, the most expensive one I could find to clean that air to maintain my people healthy so that we could be more productive. Obviously, that was a budget issue, but that was a budget priority for me. And I brought that to the forefront. On ways that I was able to maximize or be more efficient, we identified repetitive tasks that didn't really need the use of our staff. And so we hired members as temporary workers to perform these repetitive tasks. It was the volume of new member packets that had to be made was in the hundreds per week. And the phone calls that had to be made, the emails, all these follow-ups. There was a lot of these repetitive tasks that at this particular organization, we needed to separate our organizers and have them focus on higher level work. And we brought in members similar to what you do here, members on lease maybe, but we brought them in as temporary workers to assist us in that. Saved us significant resources in salary of hiring additional workers because we did not have the budget for that. They had the budget to account for all this number of temporary staff that could do the repetitive tasks.
Thanks, sir.
Sure.
Mr. Ortiz,
Sure.
describe your experience in the following human resource functions: classification and compensation, testing, selection, layoff and reemployment, and organizational development.
Classification compensation. So we conducted a study in San Diego at La Mesa Spring Valley. And we advocated for the funding. Funding is on the budget, fine. It took us a couple of years, and we hired an outside consultant, Robert Hall and Associates, if I remember right. And they conducted the study of all the classifications, like 32, 33 of them. In the process of that, my involvement was, I was part of the RFP. My members in my unit who gave me input. We also, let me see here. I lost my train for a second. Let me see. You don't come back.
You're okay. Take time. Take time.
There's too many things floating at the same time over here, but, oh yes. So you were asking for some of the specific examples. I think that might have been the previous question I was reading. But one of the classifications we looked at was when the new duties by legislation came into the unit, right? And that was a wall-to-wall unit, so they did come in. However, merit systems were excluded by error of the legislature. About a year later was when that was fixed to a different separate bill. And so in that particular case, we also, when we brought them in, we bargained that particular classification. We did the comparisons with other districts, comparisons of salary, job duties, and what we discovered is that, well, sometimes these don't fit exactly. Like there was differences in the job descriptions and the duties, and one particular sticking point was the use of a cart, golf cart, and driving the golf cart. So we have to account for that, and in the end, obviously, we resolved that through bargaining. Right? Let's see, you asked here about testing and selection. I think, I would answer that as a regional manager. We tested and interviewed, selected staff at United Domestic Workers. And our testing was a paper test, right? So we used ZipRecruiter. We got hundreds of resumes and then collated all that into a top 10 kind of list. And then from that, our selection committee narrowed that to the top 3, similar to the process that you use here. And then we interviewed. We went through that process. We had a rubric built into the system and that ensured that everything was fair and equitable, and obviously that we could justify our decision to walk. And we made a selection that we. Organizational development. It sounds like when I walked into United Domestic Workers, they were in the process of doing major changes to the office. There had been a lot of turmoil with the staff and the previous manager, so they asked me to evaluate the staff. I evaluated the staff. We put a plan together for improvement and of the whole office and provided the necessary training. So we identified a vendor that could give us the training we needed. Some was on interpersonal communication, some of it was on just time management. There was, some of the training, we did a lot of role play. Our organizers were sort of like salespeople, right? So they needed to do a lot of contact with the public and with members and be able to sell our program. So we did a lot of those trainings and we used some outside help for that. I think that's all I have.
Okay, let's see. Can you describe your experience conducting compensation studies, including your response to the agencies you were working in at the time and the position you held? Also provide examples of the positions for which the salaries were studied. Describe the resources you used in conducting the studies.
Okay. Yes, I think this is what I was referring to in the other question. So, the known duties, I think is a good example. Where, CSEA, I was in Mesa Spring Valley, all this happened. We were happy when the change in the law happened. However, it excluded the merit system, so we had to wait a while to taken care of. It's a little different than here. This is not a wall-to-wall unit, so it kind of has to go through a different process. But in La Mesa, yeah, we once we brought him in, and we have to determine the correct job description and the placement on the salary scale and the internal alignment with families, because there's a lead, there's a regular tenant, right? And so all this have to be worked out first with the unit and with management, and finally with the collaboration with the personnel commission, right, on where we land on all of these. Let's see, some reasons real quick. Resources, we called, we started to call every district that had them already, and the job descriptions, where in the salary scale we were, pay rate was, and try to join both of them together and see where they would fit on out. Because these don't necessarily fit, right? So there's discrepancies in all those. And then come up with, with, with a solution for placement. And once we kind of decided on percentile, on what target salary percentile we needed to meet, then we could sort of find the box and with the salary schedule that we could fit them. And that's how we kind of move forward.
Sure. Describe your experience with the development of examinations, including the validation of items within the exam. Describe the resources you have used in regard, especially in preparing written and oral examinations.
Okay, so for this, I would say is when at UDW, we basically used the paper application as an example. That was that's sort of a way that we scored it. With a rubric of the requirements we had, that was the initial screen, and then, like I said prior, then we narrowed it down to about hundreds of resumes, because we did get hundreds, but they were not qualified. To narrow them down to a top 10, and then further collating it down to the 3 that we would actually speak to and interview. And then we go through our process. Oral examination, I think that would be like an interview for us.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, next question.
Sure.
Describe your personal management style and philosophy. In this context, how would you establish and maintain standards of integrity for your departmental staff?
You know, I like to be inclusive of everyone's opinion and mindful that as a manager, you also have to make decisions that sometimes are not popular, but have to be done. Right? But I always like to include my staff, get feedback, try to get, if there is a problem, then if we can come up with a solution, and try to get buy-in from the stakeholders, I found it's just a lot easier to implement. If you try to deal with a lot of the questions or challenges in front end, right, by including the stakeholders and people that are going to be affected, whether it's staff or if it's somebody's class being reclassed, etc. Right? You want to get that feedback. So I always like to have that open communication with my people and my staff. I like to get input from others. If I'm not sure, I ask a question. I know a little bit of everything. Sometimes I know a lot of one thing, but I always try to check, right? And check with others to make sure I'm grounded and we're gonna produce the best solution. Sometimes that's based on data, right? So sometimes, just like some of these other questions, you start with the data and see where the data leads you, and then try to implement that. And sometimes that data is personal communication with somebody giving you input, right? That you can then collate and use for a solution. And in this other part of the question here, I think you always lead by example and always try to what's it called, model what you want others to do, and try to do the best you can, and always make sure that people get the recognition that they deserve when they're doing the right thing. I think that's the right way to do it.
Can you explain your understanding of the function and the role of the Personnel Commission?
So as I see it, right, you're the executive board, right? The executive decisions are made here to uh, maintain the merit system and administer the merit system. Some of that is delegated to the staff under the direction of the personnel committee. And but on your monthly meetings that you have here, you review issues that are coming up, either reclassification of classes or disciplines, etc. And they're the keepers of this great system that is the merit system. You have to ensure that it's complying with ed code and labor code and other codes, right? Your PC rules and contractual obligations with the bargaining units. That's how I see it. This is also a place where people come and use it as a sounding board for issues or problems, and that can also be taken up at a later date for a solution, right? Give direction to the staff to come up with solutions for the problem.
Please describe your supervisory experience, including number of employees supervised and the type of work your employees perform.
My staff, I supervised, including my temporary employees, about 16, both in San Diego and Imperial counties. Went to visit my office in Imperial County about twice a month. We did a lot of work over Zoom. And I also had two leads. I had a lead in San Diego and a lead in Imperial County. They took over. My lead in Imperial County, they managed the office. And so they ensured that our program was being implemented. I evaluated my staff. I gave them feedback. They gave me feedback. We had meetings where they were giving me feedback. As a manager, I think it was important to check in and have that kind of conversation. We had weekly check-ins as a staff, with my staff, and I had individual check-ins with staff that had an issue or needed to talk to me, or I needed to talk to them. And I provided training for them when I could provide that training myself, or we seek the help of a consultant to help us out with training needs in our office. And then what else? Approved expenses, mileage, and reimbursements, timesheets. All that was done on the software, right? ADT, we used ADT for that. And I ensured that the program or the goals and vision of the organization were being implemented as best as we could. Right? One of their main goals was signing up with new members. Right? And we had a specific goal, it's 80%, which is very high. And our office was, when I took over, we're way below that, and we were working in the right direction to try to bring them up to 8, which is a big lift, doable. And type of work my employees perform, they were organizers. So they took calls from the public, from our members on issues, if they had timesheet issues, and these were our members were in-home care providers, right? So oftentimes 80% of them were family members who were taking care of family members that was ill, or sometimes terminally, and the other 20% were just individuals that were providing this care. And so there was always timesheet errors, hundreds per month, right? With that many employees or members, it's about 25,000 members, right? So hundreds of errors per month that we have to correct. And oftentimes it was an error on filling out the timesheet. And if the county on the third error, they would stop paying you. So it was a big deal for us to make sure people filled out those timesheets. Maximize, included all their hours, but they couldn't go over the hours in a certain week, and there was all these different regulations for that. So that's what my staff primarily worked on. We also conducted trainings on how individuals can maximize their hourly allotment for treatment, for caring of their patient, client. So we conducted these trainings on an ongoing basis every week, multiple times. And then we had new employee orientations. We had about 60 per week. That's how many people were being hired. The turnover is high, right? So 60 new employee orientations per week at the county. And my staff have to go staff it and conduct the orientations and try to get those members to sign up.
Your last question. Please tell us what you thought of this recruitment process and how you would improve it.
So, I actually commented this with Patty, right? How I thought, the screening I had previously was such great people here in Barstow, right? So really warm and felt very welcome. And I get really nervous at these things. I'm not gonna. If you're asking about challenges, right? Interviewing is one of them. I'm trying to work on it. And so, but I felt really welcomed here, so I commend you for that, right? And I've obviously been through this process of interviewing over the years, right? I was employed for a long time, but eventually I started looking, and I think this is what you have here is good, right? The process that you have seems fair to me and equitable and easy on the edges, right? Welcoming, so you ask how do you improve it, right? There's always has to be some kind of self-checking or critique or and I mean, having a hard time coming up with one, but I would think sometimes maybe additional communication to keep people informed of deadlines and where you are in the process, because anytime you apply for these things, you don't know if it's forward or not forward. Things have changed, and more communication is always better.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. That concludes our questions. If there is anything you'd like to add quickly, to the end for our deliberation, I'll give you, a couple, 3 minutes to throw in a little personal stuff if you would
Okay.
like, that you felt we didn't cover. And then we'll go into closed session and talk amongst ourselves.
Well, like I said, thank you for having me and taking this time to consider me. I think you would look at my record that my education speaks for itself. A BA and MA in political science, with a minor in psychology. I wrote a thesis, so data crunching and statistical analysis is something that I did in depth. I've also used Excel and Minitab for some light statistical stuff in our work. And I also want you to know that, well, if you glance at my resume, right, that, I'm working on a couple of certificates to just further my education. Like, I'm a life learner, and, I like to keep learning and finding out new stuff. I'm curious about the world, so I'm taking a class at Cal State San Marcos online for SHRMCP, which is the Society for Human Resources Management, certified professional. And I'm also working on the APHR, which is is a similar type certificate from the HR, HRCI. And I mean, if you look at some of my background, it's varied and sometimes it's hard to put all this in. I have to be brief, but I have a lot of experience, a lot of varied experience. And if you look at my record, you see, you talk to some of the colleagues or people in my past, they'll know that even when we disagreed, especially when we disagreed with management, when I was an advocate, that they respected me, they respected the work I was doing, and that I was a professional, and I would continue to be a professional. And I, you know, I mean, you've seen in my responses that all this bargaining and advocacy and disciplines and grievances, et cetera, per charges and so on. But all that being said, you know, still person that is Dan, right? You know, it says Daniel in there, but I'm Dan. And I'd like to be approachable. While we're here wearing the armor, right? I look forward to a time when I can wear jeans and a polo shirt, be approachable to membership, have a good working relationship.
Thanks, sir. We appreciate it. Safe travels
Yes.
and thanks for coming to see us. We'll go from there. Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna be personable.
Nice meeting you. Nice meeting you.
Thank you.
Hey, take care, sir.
Hey,
Really appreciate it.
I just seeing you again.
Sure thing. You're honored.
Take care, sir. All right, with that, I will entertain a motion to go into closed session to discuss this.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Lady? We're back from closed session, it's 3:20. There was a vote held into closed session, and we will be offering Mr. Ortiz the job director. And we have instructed the current director to start with reference checks and background and all of that. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Good to go, time's 3:20.